This is the iPhone 12. iPhone 12. Right off the bat, let's get into it. So, with the exception of the front and the notch, because I don't like the way that looks, this is one of my favorite design phones of the year. I prefer the iPhone 12 Pro because of the frosted back. It looks much better, but I really do like this square-like form factor. And as a matter of fact, because of that square-like form factor, it feels really nice to hold. Like, it genuinely does feel really premium, especially with that aluminum frame. There's something about that aluminum frame that just makes it so nice to just hold, and you feel like you're holding a slab of solid metal, and then, you know, as a result, that kind of feels quite premium. But something I want to mention that's kind of a nitpick is that when you hold the phone, it's not as comfortable as holding a rounded phone like the iPhone 10 or iPhone 11 Pro, for example. That was more comfortable to hold because of the rounded edges. It's not as comfortable, but instead of comfort, you get this satisfaction of holding something that feels really premium. And talking about the design, I really do like the design of the camera bump. It's the same as last year, but I just kind of want to mention it. There's something that looks so nice about it. It's so refined and so simple and elegant, and you can just tell based on looking at that camera bump that the engineering on this phone is on point. If you're getting the red color, it does look a little bit peachy in some environments. In other environments, it does look red. It just depends on the environment where you're holding it, that kind of thing. Now, some of you may know about Ceramic Shield. Ceramic Shield is basically the glass that Apple are using on top of Gorilla Glass 5 that makes it apparently 4 times stronger to drops, 4 times more resistant. And, you know, I'm not going to test that, and I can tell you I haven't got it cracked, but does this apply to scratches? I really don't think so, because I'm not sure whether it's right out the box. Like, the day I unboxed it, later that day, I noticed a really deep scratch on my screen. I'm really upset about it, and I don't know how it got there. So the situation with scratches, I'm not too sure about. Like, I'm trying to dig my head for why it happened, but I can't find an explanation. So whether it came like that in the box, I don't know. Whether I did something, whether I placed it somewhere, I'm not sure. But what I am sure about is that it should not have happened, whatever the case was, because nothing significant happened that day to cause a scratch as deep as what came out. In fact, it shouldn't have even caused a minor scratch. Now, if you've ever held the iPhone 11, you'll know that's a heavy phone. Also the XR. They're one of the heaviest phones that I personally have ever used, whereas the 12 is one of the lightest phones I've ever used. Now, in comparison to the 11, the 12 is incredibly light, but also as an individual phone, the 12 is a very light phone. Like, genuinely, I gave it to a friend. They were like, yeah, that's light, you know, because it is. But yeah, also I really like the size of the 12. I think it's a really perfect kind of option between the range. It sucks that most phones now are really big. I really do like this. It's perfect. It's like the screen is big enough to appreciate whatever content is there, but also to be able to comfortably use it. Also, this phone has a lightning port. Everyone knows this is kind of normal, but I don't like it. I remember when I first came to put the cable in, it was like, oh yeah, well, because, you know, I'd been using USB-C for the past few months and I forgot that any other port existed. So yeah, that's kind of annoying. Now the display. Now, first thing is, in comparison to the iPhone 11, this screen is about 1 billion times better, and that is because it's an OLED display. What does this mean? This basically means that each pixel has its own individual backlight, meaning a pixel can be turned off. So say you want a black thing on your screen, instead of producing a black pixel that emits light, it's actually turning the pixel off, so you're getting a true black, which results in more contrast. So say you have a black screen and the lights are off in your room, then on an OLED you wouldn't be able to see the phone, but on an LCD it would be kind of dark blue because the screen is emitting light and it's not a true black. So this is why OLEDs are better. And this is one of the things where I genuinely believe it makes a difference in terms of the screen. Like, a lot of things I think the average consumer won't notice, but an OLED is a really nice addition. Another reason that it's better is because it doesn't have those large bezels, basically the black rim going around the screen. They were really big on the iPhone 11, but now they're much smaller. They're actually the same as the 12 Pro, so it looks much nicer now from a design perspective, and you know, it's more immersive and all of that. Now, something that does annoy me about the screen is that it does not have 120 Hz, whereas like every phone does, basically meaning that the screen refreshes 120 times per second, whereas this one only refreshes at 60 times per second. So the 120 times makes it feel much smoother, especially when you're scrolling and that kind of thing. But it is one of the smoothest 60 Hz displays that I've ever used, so that is kind of a good thing. If you're gonna have a 60 Hz display, you want it to be on your iPhone, but it's not 120 Hz. Now, when it comes to haptics, basically like the vibrations you get when you press something on a display, so it kind of feels like you're pressing a button, those sort of haptics, not the vibrations you get when you get a call. So those sort of haptics, they're really nice. iPhone, in my opinion, are the best. There are other companies which are kind of close, but iPhone make the best haptics. And to me, the quality of the haptics is kind of what defines whether a phone is premium or not, because I don't know, something about it just makes a big difference for me. Oh, and by the way, if you think this setup looks cool, wallpapers, icons, all of it linked below. There's also a black version of the setup, and there's videos on them coming soon. If they're already out, then they're in the info cards in the top right corner. So yeah, wallpapers, icons, all linked below. Go check them out if you're interested. But through the display, you're interacting with the software. The software is one of the most important aspects of a phone ever. And one of the key selling points of any iPhone is iOS. This is what defines an iPhone, not the hardware. The hardware is good, but the software is what defines the iPhone, and that is the key selling point. And I'm an Android person. I use an Android on the daily. I prefer Android because you get customization that you just cannot get with iPhone. And I stand by that, but iOS does have an advantage to Android, which I really wish Android had. And that's optimization. Basically meaning using iOS feels so smooth and flawless, and overall it's a joy to use because there are no gimmicks, there's no last minute features. Every single feature on iPhone is thought out and it's designed to look perfect. The animations, every single frame of those animations are made to look as good as possible. When I'm using an Android, I always do kind of miss the fluidity that you get with iOS that you do not get with Android, and some versions of Android are much closer to this than others, but they're not the same as iOS. And so the way that I would describe iOS is that everything that is executed perfectly, but there's a lot more that can be executed. Now, whether that's a pro or whether that's a con, it really depends on you as a person. But iOS is definitely a joy to use, I gotta give it that. Now, coming from Android, something that I've had to get used to is FaceID, which is something I really do not like. The situation with the masks is really annoying, and you can't really blame Apple for this because, you know, they couldn't have really seen this coming beforehand, but it's annoying, and that's kind of the reality. Second thing is when it's on a table, it's also quite annoying because sometimes it doesn't work and you gotta pick it up, and that's really irritating. Overall, even before the pandemic, I was just never a fan of Face ID. It's slower, it's just more inconvenient. It's not as effortless as Apple imagined it to be or sold it to be, and that's why I prefer Touch ID. And yeah, those are my thoughts on Face ID. But you know what, other than that, it's an iPhone. The reality is it's an iPhone, and there's not a lot that I have to say. If you're gonna update to this phone from an iPhone, don't expect a crazy thing because it is the usual. Alright, it's iOS on a slightly different form factor. That's the reality. Now, I've already spoken about the power brick situation, about how they're not including that in the box and what I think of that. Now, that's all in my unboxing. So if you want to know my opinions about that, then go check out the unboxing. But battery. Now, battery is a really important thing to everybody. And it's not bad here. It's nothing crazy, but it's good. 5.5 hours on a daily basis. You know, I'll end the day with 20-25%. It's not bad. For me, what I care about more than battery life is how fast the battery charges. Like with OnePlus, you can get to 100% in 40 minutes. That is crazy because you forget charging your phone, then put it in for 5 minutes and you're up by like 20%. I really wish iPhone was that fast and that, you know, it came with a power brick, and that's a different thing. But as I say, battery life is it's okay. It's not bad. It's pretty good. Now, in terms of the cameras, you get two cameras, a 12 megapixel main camera and a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. And yeah, they're a normal iPhone camera. It's kind of what you expect. You are getting some improvements. The video, as per usual, is pretty good on iPhone. But yeah, let's dive into some of the shots. In this photo in particular, I really like the dynamic range. So, you know, the way it could capture all the detail in the clouds and the sky. That was really nice. Now in this nighttime photo, this darker photo, I was quite unimpressed, if I'm honest. And then here was the same kind of thing. It was much better than the previous one, but the ultra wide and night didn't go super well. Here it looked really nice. Ultra wide looked pretty good as well. Nothing crazy there. Portrait edge detection's okay, and in the macro the detail was pretty good. Now the part that really impresses me with iPhone is video. I'm not really impressed with photo, and if you add some color correcting on there and then, you know, do a little bit of your magic, then it can turn out to look quite nice. And in fact, I bet you if I was to use these in some of my videos, nobody would notice. This is all 4K scaled down, by the way. So yeah, that was that. Now to conclude, I want to point out that this phone starts at 64 gigabytes, which it shouldn't. That's just no. So technically you have to pay for $850 if you don't want a 64 gigabytes. But that aside, I think it's the best iPhone for the value, for the money. Very rarely would I justify updating from one generation to the direct next generation, but I would justify updating from the 11 to the 12 because the 12 is just that much better. It's partly because I hate the 11, you know, because I hate the form factor and the screen, and those two big things were changed dramatically with the 12 in comparison to the 11. It's not a mid-range anymore. Now I would consider it a low-priced flagship, but I think it's really good for the value. The one other phone which I think might change my mind here is the iPhone 12 mini, which I'm getting my hands on very, very soon. I'm really interested to see how this is. But overall, for 800 or 850, it's got one of the best builds on any phone ever. It's got some pretty decent cameras. It is lacking a telephoto, but most people don't care. And it's an iPhone. So, love it or hate it. If you're specifically looking for an iPhone, then in my opinion, this is the one that you should be looking into, unless you're interested in the smaller iPhone mini, or you want certain features like the telephoto and maybe you're willing to pay that extra premium for the frosted back on the 12 Pro, then this is the phone, this is the iPhone you should be getting. But if you're not locked into iOS, if you're considering this alongside an Android, I can't advise you on which way to go because it really does come down to preference, and that's when you have to compare iOS versus Android so you can make your own personal judgment. But if you're an iPhone user, you're looking for a phone that's going to last you, you don't want to pay too much, you're not considering the iPhone 12 mini, then in this case I say welcome to iPhone. I really appreciate you guys watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and give this video a like and comment because they help with the algorithm. Check out my Instagram at El-Naggar if you want a behind the scenes perspective, and you know, you get to see some cool tech, what's coming up next, how I do the things that I do. But yeah, that's about it. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Salam.